All right, let's jump into another deep dive. This one takes us straight to Grace United Church in Caledonia, Ontario.
Small town, big heart. Right.
Exactly. And our source material is actually a video of one of their Sunday services.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Man, you might think church service, that's got to be all hymns and prayers, right?
Uh-huh.
But trust me, there's a whole lot more going on beneath the surface.
Yeah.
We're talking community spirit, deep reflections on faith, and even some surprising insights into contentment and courage.
Well, I'm intrigued already.
You and me both.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things that struck me was the energy.
Oh, yeah. What kind of energy?
Pure excitement. The service starts with this big announcement about their recent Christmas market.
The Christmas market.
Yep, they'd been fundraising for local charities, and Audrey D., one of the members of the United Church Women, she's practically beaming as she announces they're close to hitting their $10,000 goal.
$10,000. Wow, that's impressive, especially for a small church.
Right. And it wasn't just a few people chipping in either. They had volunteers working their tails off. The whole community came out to support it. And they were even still selling some items after the main event wrapped up.
That's dedication. Clearly, this community doesn't just talk the talk, they walk the walk when it comes to supporting each other.
For sure. And that spirit of dedication really shines through in another touching moment. This one involves Evelyn, who's been a member of the church for decades.
Evelyn.
She receives this special pin from the United Church Women, and it's not just any pin, it's a lifetime membership pin.
Lifetime membership. Wow.
Yeah, so I was wondering, what exactly does that signify? I mean, is it just a thanks for showing up kind of thing, or is there a deeper meaning?
Oh, no, it's way more than just showing up.
I figured as much.
It represents Eva's unwavering commitment to the United Church of Canada and its women.
Wow.
A legacy of service that stretches back decades. Think about it. 20 years as UCW president, countless hours spent quilting, catering, fundraising. You name it, she probably did it.
She seemed a bit overwhelmed by all the attention, though.
She did, didn't she?
Almost embarrassed by the praise. But that humility, I think it speaks volumes.
It really does. You can tell her motivation goes way beyond simply seeking recognition.
Yeah.
It's like she finds true joy in the act of serving itself without needing the spotlight.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the ripple effect that kind of selflessness has on others.
Totally. It's infectious, isn't it?
Inspiring others to step up and contribute in their own way.
Right. And speaking of inspiration, we can't forget the children's sermon.
Now that's always a challenge, isn't it?
Explaining those big, sometimes abstract concepts of faith to kids without losing them along the way.
Right. How do you make it relatable?
Well, this pastor, he really nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
He started by talking about hunger and physical weakness.
Hunger. Interesting.
Yeah. He used it as an analogy, suggesting that just like our bodies need food for strength, our spirits need nourishment too.
Ah, I see where he's going with this.
Right. And then he took it a step further, drawing a parallel to the Apostle Paul.
Paul.
Yeah. You know, all those hardships Paul went through and how he relied on his faith to find strength during those trials.
Right, right.
But here's the kicker. He didn't just talk about it. He actually used candy to demonstrate.
Candy in church.
Yeah. To show how prayer and connecting with Jesus can provide that spiritual sustenance we need.
Now that's a visual aid any kid can get behind.
Tell me about it. And then we shift gears into the main sermon where the pastor really dives into these deep, often challenging concepts of contentment and courage in faith.
Ah, yes, contentment and courage. Those are big ones.
Huge. And I'll admit, they're concepts I've always wrestled with.
Well, you're not alone there.
Right. But the way he framed them really got me thinking.
So how did he approach contentment?
He actually called it a secret, learned through experience.
A secret. That's intriguing.
Right. Not something you just stumble upon, but a journey of spiritual growth, kind of like
Go on.
a toddler learning to walk.
Ah, I see. Finding that stability and peace in Christ's presence even when life gets messy. But isn't there more to it than just passively accepting whatever comes our way?
That's a good question. What about that drive to act, to make a difference in the world? How does that fit in with contentment?
Well, maybe contentment in this context isn't about the absence of desire, but rather about finding a different source of fulfillment.
You mean one that's not tied to material possessions or achievements?
Exactly. It's about shifting our perspective on what truly matters.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that connects to his discussion of courage.
Ah, yes, courage. That was a powerful part of the sermon.
He argued that God provides for those who are brave enough to step out in faith and live a life worthy of the gospel.
Worthy of the gospel. Now, that's a phrase that could be interpreted in many ways.
That's what I was thinking. It seems a bit subjective, doesn't it?
It does raise some interesting questions about how we apply those concepts to our own lives.
Right. Is it about blindly following rules? Or is there a deeper understanding of aligning our intentions and actions with a greater purpose?
I think it's more about seeking a deeper understanding of God's will and then having the courage to actually follow it, even when it's hard.
Yeah, I agree. And the pastor actually uses his own journey into ministry as a perfect example of this.
Oh, how so?
Well, turns out he didn't just wake up one day with this clear plan and a go-get-'em attitude.
Really? That's surprising. Most pastors I know have these inspiring stories of feeling called from a young age.
Right. But his story takes a bit of a detour.
A detour? I'm all ears. It's true. His path was anything but straightforward.
So tell me, what was this detour?
Well, he actually resisted the call to ministry at first.
Resisted, really?
Yeah. He even went so far as to take a corporate job, pretending to have it all figured out.
Wait, so the pastor was a faker at one point?
Well, faker might be a bit strong.
Okay, fair enough.
But he admits that he wasn't being true to himself. He knew deep down that something was missing.
So what changed?
He describes this powerful moment while he was working that corporate job.
Uh-oh. Sounds like a divine intervention.
It kind of was. He felt this undeniable pullback towards ministry. It wasn't a gentle nudge either, more like a full-on spiritual wake-up call.
Wow.
And he knew he had to go to seminary. But there was a slight problem.
Let me guess. No money.
No money, no plan. Talk about a leap of faith.
That would send most people running in the opposite direction.
Exactly. But this is where that idea of God's provision comes into play.
Okay, so how did he swing it?
He found a way to support himself financially while attending seminary. It wasn't easy, but he made it work.
Sounds like proof that sometimes the resources we need appear when we least expect them, especially when we're aligned with our calling.
It's like the universe conspires to help us when we're on the right path.
I like that. But hold on, let's not get too carried away with the warm fuzzies here. He did make it clear that God's provision isn't a blank check for whatever we want, right?
Oh, absolutely. He was very clear about that. This isn't about chasing selfish ambition and expecting God to foot the bill.
Right.
He emphasized that this promise of provision is tied to living a life worthy of the gospel.
So it's about aligning our desires with God's will, not just asking for whatever we want.
Exactly. Seeking guidance, using our talents to serve others. It's about the bigger picture.
Okay, so how does the Philippian church fit into all of this?
Ah, good question.
They kept bringing them up.
Right. Well, he was drawing a parallel between the Philippians' unwavering support of Paul and this congregation's commitment to serving their community.
Ah, so he's connecting personal faith with community impact.
Precisely. It's not just about individual salvation. It's about living out your faith in a way that benefits others.
Makes sense.
He reminded them that just like the Philippians, they too have stepped out in faith and witnessed God's provision in incredible ways.
And I bet the Christmas market was a prime example of that.
Absolutely. He actually shared a story about a visitor who felt this overwhelming sense of home when they walked into the market.
Oh, that's so sweet. What do you think it was about that event that created that feeling?
That's a fascinating question. It speaks to that deeper meaning of home. You know, it's not just a physical space, it's a feeling of belonging, being welcomed and accepted.
Maybe for this visitor, it was that tangible expression of love and generosity that permeated the event.
Right. That sense that people genuinely cared for one another and their community.
And that ties back to his message about stepping out in faith and trusting God to work through us.
Exactly. It's like he's saying that even small acts of service can have a huge impact.
Right. But he also acknowledged that their church, while small and located in a seemingly insignificant town, can still make a big difference.
He was reminding them that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called.
Love that. It's not about our limitations. It's about our willingness to say yes and trust the journey.
And that leads us to his point about joy.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Joy. How does that fit in?
Well, he described the kind of joy that comes from taking those leaps of faith.
Like those moments when you feel like you're walking on water.
Exactly. Trusting that God will catch you if you fall. And he linked it back to that toddler learning to walk analogy, you know, that pure joy of discovery.
So it's not just about enduring challenges or fulfilling obligations. It's about finding genuine joy in the process.
Exactly. He argues that the joy of pursuing God's calling and witnessing his provision is so much deeper than anything the world can offer.
And he used his own experience preaching to a large gathering of North and South Koreans as an example.
Right. He felt like a nobody from a small town suddenly thrust onto a global stage.
But he clearly rose to the occasion.
They did. And he described it as a powerful testament to the idea that anyone, regardless of background or perceived limitations, can be an instrument of God's grace.
So you don't have to be a pastor or a missionary to find this kind of fulfillment.
It's about those everyday moments of choosing faith over fear.
Embracing the unknown, trusting that God's with you every step of the way.
Beautifully put. And that brings us to the pastor's closing remarks,
Okay.
where he circles back to their successful Christmas market.
Right. Tying it all together.
Expressing gratitude for the congregation's hard work.
Reminding them that all those individual efforts, big and small, contribute to something much bigger.
Creating a community where people feel welcomed and loved.
It's about more than just fundraising goals or impressive events.
It's about the impact it has on people's lives.
Creating a space where they can experience God's love.
He talked about fostering a culture of service, compassion, and generosity.
Letting those values ripple outwards.
Touching the lives of those within and beyond the church walls.
And he brought it back to that visitor who felt so at home at the market.
Suggesting that even simple acts of kindness can create these glimpses of heaven on earth.
Where people feel seen and loved.
And it's worth noting how that emphasis on community runs throughout the whole service.
Oh, totally. From celebrating the market success to honoring Eva Lynn's dedication.
There's this sense of shared purpose, interconnectedness.
Woven together by this invisible thread of faith.
And the music, even the hymns they chose, reinforce that feeling.
Great is thy faithfulness, and because he lives.
Powerful expressions of trust and hope.
Not just catchy tunes, but affirmations of their beliefs.
And those moments of quiet reflection and prayer add another layer to the experience.
Creating space for individual connection while strengthening the bonds between them.
It's that balance of personal and shared experience.
It's easy to forget about nurturing that sense of belonging, but this service shows how important it is.
It's a basic human need to feel connected to something larger than ourselves.
To know you're part of a community that shares your values.
And this service is a beautiful example of how faith can create that feeling.
So what role does community play in our own journeys of finding contentment and courage?
That's the question, isn't it?
It's clear that for Grace United, their faith community is a source of strength and inspiration.
A place to celebrate achievements, honor dedication, and find solace in shared beliefs.
It's a reminder that we're not meant to walk this path alone.
We need those anchors, those communities that provide a sense of belonging.
That remind us that even in the midst of chaos, there's a deeper truth connecting us all.
And what's really inspiring is how this community extends beyond its own walls.
Impacting others through acts of service and generosity.
They're not just talking the talk, they're living it out.
It's about recognizing that our own faith journeys are intertwined with the well-being of our communities.
It's a powerful message.
It challenges us to think about how we can contribute to a more compassionate world.
A world where everyone feels a sense of belonging and purpose.
You know, I think that the pastor summed it up perfectly when he said, it's about giving it a go.
Stepping out in faith, even when we're unsure of the outcome.
Trusting that God will guide our steps and provide the support we need.
It's a message that goes way beyond the walls of Grace United.
It's a timeless reminder that when we align ourselves with something bigger than ourselves, when we choose to live a life of service,
we tap into this wellspring of joy and fulfillment.
It's about embracing that messy, unpredictable journey of faith.
Knowing that even when we stumble, we're held by a love that never fails.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep coming back to the pastor's closing question. What is God calling you to do?
What step of faith is he inviting you to take?
What act of courage might lead you to a deeper sense of joy?
It's a powerful question to sit with.
It really is. And it doesn't have to be about some grand, life-altering mission.
It could be a small act of kindness.
A decision to forgive.
Simply showing up for someone in need.
It's those everyday choices that shape who we are.
And what I find encouraging is that the pastor doesn't pretend it's always easy.
He admits to his own doubts.
He reminds us that even those with a strong sense of calling still have moments of uncertainty.
He's giving us permission to be human.
Exactly, to acknowledge those struggles without feeling like failure.
It's not the absence of doubt that defines our faith, but the willingness to keep going.
To keep trusting, to keep seeking guidance.
It's that resilience that resonates with me.
Me too.
And that resilience often comes from the support of those around us.
Those who share our journey and encourage us to keep striving.
Which brings us back to that amazing sense of community we saw.
We're not meant to navigate this alone.
We need those communities, those safe havens where we can be vulnerable.
Share our struggles, celebrate our victories,
That's where we find the strength to keep going, the inspiration to dream bigger.
the courage to step out in faith, knowing that we're not alone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Grace United, I'm feeling incredibly inspired.
It's a reminder that even in a chaotic world, there are these pockets of light and love
Communities where faith is more than just words.
where it's lived out, making a real difference.
And maybe, most importantly, it's a challenge to cultivate that same spirit in our own lives.
That contentment, that courage, that sense of community.
How can we step out in faith?
How can we embrace the unknown and contribute to a better world?
A world where everyone feels a sense of belonging and purpose.
It's something to think about as we go about our week.
A reminder that the journey of faith isn't just about Sundays.
It's about living it out each and every day.
Striving to make a difference, one step at a time.
And one final thought. What is God calling you to do?
We hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Maybe even a little nudge to embrace your own faith adventure.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
It really is a powerful question, isn't it? Something to really sit with.
It is. It kind of sticks with you, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about some big life-changing mission either.
Right. It could be something small.
Totally. Like, what if it's just an act of kindness?
We're choosing to forgive someone.
Yeah. Or just being there for someone who's struggling.
Exactly. It's those everyday choices that really matter.
They add up.
They do. They shape who we are.
And I think what's really cool about the pastor's message is he's not pretending it's all sunshine and rainbows.
Oh, absolutely. He's honest about the struggles.
Yeah, he talks about his own doubts, those moments of uncertainty.
Which is refreshing, honestly.
Right, because it makes it feel more real, more relatable.
It does. And he makes this point that even those who feel a strong calling to ministry, to serving others, they still have moments where they question their path.
Where they wonder if they're up to the task.
Exactly. And I think that's so important to acknowledge because it gives us permission to be human.
To not have all the answers all the time.
Right. It's okay to not be okay.
It's not about being perfect.
It's about that willingness to keep going even when it's tough.
To keep believing, keep seeking, keep trusting.
And that's what really struck me, that resilience.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It is. And you know, we often find that strength in the people around us.
The ones who lift us up when we're down.
Who share our journey and encourage us to keep reaching for something more.
And that brings us right back to that incredible sense of community we saw in this service.
That feeling of belonging, of shared purpose.
It's like a reminder that we weren't meant to go through this thing called life alone.
We need each other.
Those safe havens where we can be ourselves, you know.
Absolutely. To be vulnerable, to share our burdens.
And to celebrate our victories.
Exactly. And I think that's where we find the strength to keep going.
The inspiration to dream bigger, to be bolder.
The courage to step out in faith, knowing we've got people backing us up.
It's powerful stuff. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Grace United Church, I'm walking away feeling incredibly inspired.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful reminder that even in a world that can feel so divided at times, there are still these pockets of light.
Communities where faith isn't just an abstract idea.
It's a lived experience, a force for good.
And it challenges us to think about how we can create that same kind of spirit in our own lives.
That sense of contentment, courage, community.
Yeah, how can we step out in faith, embrace the unknown?
How can we each contribute to building a better world?
A world where everyone feels like they belong, like their life has purpose?
It's a big question, but it's worth wrestling with.
Absolutely. And it all starts with taking that first step.
That giving it a go mentality that the pastor talked about.
Trusting that even if we don't have all the answers, even if we stumble along the way, we're moving in the right direction.
And that's the beauty of faith, isn't it?
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
It's about trusting the process, knowing that we're not alone.
And so, as we say goodbye to this deep dive, we leave you with this. What is God calling you to do?
What small act of kindness can you offer today?
What step of faith can you take to make the world a little brighter?
It's up to each of us to find our own answers.
But we believe that within each of us lies the potential to make a real difference.
So go out there, embrace your faith adventure.
And keep diving deep.